A very, very warm welcome, everyone, wherever you are from around the world, to our webinar on resilience. I hope that you and everyone you care for is really well and healthy. Today, my wonderful colleagues and I will take you through a session on resilience. And this is our game plan for the next 45 minutes. We want to speak about why we speak about resilience in the moment, even more so, and how we can build resilience for ourselves and the people who are with us, who are around us. And we looked at the research interviews we did and the coaching experiences and the experiences we have with executives. And we came up with a very straightforward framework about feeling, thinking, and doing. And those 3 steps can build resilience in you and the one you care for. So just a little bit of a health warning. If you're expecting a very sophisticated academic framework with 50 dimensions and a lot of formula and Greek numbers, this might not be the webinar for you. But if you're looking for pretty pragmatic and hands-on experiences, you should be okay. The second health warning I have is that the original design for the session is really 3.5 hours long. So after every installment, we would have an exercise, an application exercise that is coach supported, which we can't run here for time reasons. So please bear with us. I hope you still find the session useful in building resilience for yourselves and the people you care for. And we have quite time, of course, for your questions and answers at the very end of the session. We'll look at the chat functions throughout and see that we can answer them with you. This takes me to housekeeping. Yes, we do have a chat function, so please send us your comments and your questions here. And in a few moments, we will use Mentimeter. So if you could already log into a laptop or a smartphone on your site and log into the page of menti.com. You see the code here. We will give you the code again in a few minutes, so you don't have to remember it now. Just bear with us, just log in. So, who are we? You are not alone, I am not alone, we're in this together. So I have 3 wonderful colleagues here with me, and we would like to introduce ourselves briefly. Gabrielle, can you start, please?
I'm Gabrielle Orte. I'm here in Lausanne. I'm a consultant and coach. I work with organizations, teams, and individuals for transformation, business, and human.
Fantastic, thank you.
Nina. Hi, I'm Nina, originally from Manchester, England, based in Munich, Germany. I've been working for 25 years as a facilitator and coach in the private sector, doing leadership development in the United Nations for 8 years and working at the IMD for 5 years as a coach on the HPL program.
Hello, everyone. So my name's Marie. I'm in Yorkshire in the UK, and I'm a leadership coach. I've worked with IMD for the last 12 years. My passion is making the link between emotions and high performance, both for individuals and organizations. So great to be with you.
Thank you very much. My name is Katharina Lange. I am professor of leadership here at IMD. And my interest in resilience actually started a while back when I was looking at how organizations transform and how they become agile, in particular in the digital transformation. And then I wanted to find out what they do if they land at, let's say, results that they didn't expect, how they deal with unexpected outcomes. And this sparked my interest in resilience. And it appears to be a very, very topical topic in the moment. So why do we speak about resilience, and why is it important even now in times of crisis? And I would like to tie this explanation to a bit of a personal story here. I love to read Dante's Divine Comedy. And actually, when I did this 4 or 5 weeks ago, and going to bed with the story of Dante standing or going through a very emotional journey through the 9 circles of hell and through purgatory, arriving at paradise, and going to bed and waking up in the next morning to these headlines of people dying by the thousands, businesses coming to a grinding halt, people getting laid off, unemployed, families suffering. And I found that whatever trade-off we would make, people would be suffering. And I thought, wow, this is hell. This is inferno. This is how it felt for me. And I was right there back at the 3rd canto of the Divine Comedy, at the gates of hell, where it reads, "Abandon all hope, ye who shall enter here." This is what Dante experiences in the story, and this is how the book and reality merged all of a sudden. So thankfully, the story continues, and Dante is not alone. Dante stands in the gates of hell with his friend, his Roman friend, the fatherly friend, Virgil. And Virgil takes Dante by his hand, and together it reads, "All cowardice must die." And so together the two embark on this emotional journey through the 9 circles of hell. They see atrocities of humanity. They eventually reach purgatory and ascend in an excruciating effort to purgatory, the 7 terraces of purgatory, and then eventually reach the earthly paradise. And this is where they meet Beatrice. Beatrice is a female sage, a divine beauty and the divine love of Dante. And Beatrice, she is the reason why they're doing it. She actually has sent Virgil to take Dante through this journey, through hell and purgatory, to meet her there in paradise. So for me, there were a lot of strong parallels between the Divine Comedy and the crisis as I experienced it. On the one side, the crisis really throws open the weaknesses, the fault lines of everything, of healthcare systems, of economies, of business models, of societies, of families, and ourselves. And this is also how you can read the Divine Comedy. It's a journey of Dante into himself, the mirror that he's been held up to, looking into it, and then making amends in purgatory. And I think we're all a little bit like Dante in this journey. I also felt very horrified and paralyzed by what I saw. But then there was Virgil. I was not alone. Dante was not alone. So Virgil took his hand and said, "All cowardice must die." And with a lot of courage, both went in. And I think we all are Virgil sometimes as well. We're all leading someone. We're all maybe taking our families by the hand, our parents, our neighbors, our teams, our organizations. We're both Dante and Virgil. And the strong message I read from this Divine Comedy is that when we are clear on why we're doing it, why we're going through this, there's a purpose, there's a reason why we're doing it. Dante and Virgil, they had Beatrice, they had the divine love as the reason. And if we have a purpose doing it, then you might come out of it, at the end of it, stronger, learn something. And Beatrice, she's for me the real hero here. She is the reason why the two guys really embark on this journey, the divine love that she has and the divine sage that she is. So if we as teachers, we as coaches or as friends can be someone who is such inspiring, who can inspire people to go through such a journey, wow, we've done a good job. So maybe this is my hidden agenda here a little bit, that all of us take a little bit out of this divine spark of Beatrice and inspire people around us to stay with us, to be courageous, to go through their journey and to come out stronger at the other end. So this is resilience, or part of how I define resilience. And there are many definitions for resilience. Some say it is the ability to recover from or adjust to misfortune and change easily. Some say it is the ability to stay composed and calm in adversity. Some say it is the ability to bounce back or even bounce forward. I would like to offer you a perspective, a definition on resilience that's maybe a bit different. However, I love to use it today here because it helps us to build more resilience. It gives you a certain lens on it. And the definition I would love to offer today is this. It's a definition by Androsoli. Resilience is the capability of a system, organization, or an individual to maintain its core purpose and integrity in face of dramatically changed circumstances. And I would believe we all agree that these are dramatically changed circumstances. So how can we really come back to what defines us, what we would like to do as an individual, as a team, or as an organization? And how can we remain the integrity between head and heart? Obviously, this has a lot to do with emotions. And some of us are born with a higher degree of resilience. Some of us had a very fortunate upbringing and parents and grandparents taught us resilience. Some of us had to learn it later, but it was always rewarding being resilient. So how can we arrive more resiliently? Emotions obviously play a strong part in managing yourselves, becoming resilient. And we all respond in a certain way towards adversity, towards uncomfortable truth in crisis. Most of you, or some of you, are familiar with the work that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has done when working with cancer patients. I'm briefly going through her findings to show that there are very strong emotions at play when we're facing adversity. So maybe likely in this crisis, we all might have responded with shock or denial or avoidance. This couldn't be true, right? The pandemic, that doesn't happen. And then maybe later we were anxious or frustrated and irritated because this was really going really, really strongly. So the initial response is normally pretty negative towards imposed change. What we don't like about change, that it is imposed on us, and we don't like the uncertainty part about it. And we're really responding strongly to it. You might even feel overwhelmed and helpless in light of all the millions of negative news that were raining down on us. Some of us felt sad and depressed maybe, or responded with hostility in fight mode. And then after a while, and this is where the rationalization and the sense making kicks in. After a while, we might struggle for meaning. We might reach out to our Virgil, to our guide, who might help us making sense, who gives us courage. And this guide becomes very, very important for us. And then lastly, we're okay with exploring something new, to eventually accept that this crisis, this stage will stay, and we're okay to move on. And the great of us are really able to be thankful for it, to be thankful for the experience, because we might have learned something. We might have looked at a weakness and we might have found something that makes us stronger, where we can really emerge out of this experience a little bit better, a little bit bolder, a little brighter, a little bit more divine maybe. So emotions play a very strong part in becoming resilient. And being thankful is one of the greater achievements. And I'm looking at Marie now, because Marie will take us through the first little segment of our session.
Yeah, thank you, Katharina. So Katharina's run through a number of emotions that show up on the grief curve. And during times of crisis, our emotions are high. If you like, they're almost amplified. If you think about emotions, they're important warning signals for us. They serve to protect us. They certainly guide us when we need it. The danger with strong emotions is that they can start to derail us. We can become hostage to them. So it's important for us to have strategies of how we deal with them. The first step is to gain some awareness of the emotions that we're feeling. And we'd love to invite you at this point to start to share some of the emotions that you've been experiencing over the last few weeks. So now's the moment to go back to that menti.com, which we've asked you to connect to. Just key in the code 225135, and then you'll be prompted, you'll be asked to just connect with two of the primary emotions that you've been feeling over the last few weeks. Let's just get a sense. We've already seen the extraordinary number of people that we've got connecting with us today from all over the world, but let's get a sense of what you're feeling. So I can see that some of the big emotions that you're feeling here are uncertainty, anxiety. Many of you are feeling anger. You can see sadness. So many of those are the emotions that you see showing up very early on that grief curve, those first reactions we have to our sense of loss, to change. You can see confusion there. I can also see many of you are talking about surprise. Some of you are talking about hope. I see some of you are feeling thankfulness. So actually, we've got a gamut of emotions here, but some of these are the more positive emotions that I can see that some of you are feeling further down on that grief curve when we're starting to move towards an area of acceptance, of moving forward and making sense, and hopefully from that, taking action. So just looking at these extraordinary emotions that we're all feeling, that amplification of these as well.
I'm just looking at the numbers coming in. We still have only about 50% of all our audience is dialing in. We have roughly 600 people in the call, and we have yet roughly 300 entries. So maybe we let it go for a little while, and we share the slide afterwards with the audience.
It's extraordinary, Katharina, to see the diversity of emotions. And the one thing I would say, just thinking back on that grief curve, is to say it's not linear. It's very likely that you'll be feeling a number of these emotions at the same time on the same day. So we can feel some of these emotions that you're talking about in relation to fear and anxiety, at the same time connecting to emotions that you're identifying like thankfulness, gratitude. So just bringing your awareness to the fact it's very unlikely that this will be linear and you may be jumping through emotions, but just bringing also your awareness to the fact they will be amplified. And don't forget, times of crisis are times when our emotions are high, but also the emotions of those around us are high. So you're likely to be experiencing in your relationship with others, people who are feeling hostage or overwhelmed by making sense of how they're feeling and how they then behave in relation to that. So we're not alone in this.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marie. And you mentioned an important point. Yes, we're not alone. You are not alone. The sentence has manifold meanings. So just as a quick exercise, and thank you so very much for sharing your emotions here with us. If you're reflecting back on the emotions that you felt and how strongly you felt about them, maybe take a quick moment to think, how might other people around us feel? Does this maybe change how you feel about yourselves? If you think about the little shop owner next to your house, the coffee shop owner who will stand in the ruins of his commercial existence. If you think about how many children are not safe at home. If you think about the many people who have lost family members in this crisis. And I believe the fact that we are able to dial in such a webinar on such a day today is already a sign that we're already at the rather happier side of this equation. So one of my greatest teachers always used to say, life is not fair, but normally that's to our benefit. So how does this make you feel about how you're feeling yourselves? Does this help? Let's see. Thank you very much for sharing your emotions. We would like to take you with this little exercise into our very, very straightforward framework. Again, it lacks any sophistication academically. However, we hope to give you some examples from the practice we do with and the research interviews we're doing with executives, how you can manage the feelings, how you can go into thinking mode to arrive at meaningful actions into doing. And we have examples on the individual level, because you need to lead yourself first before you lead anyone else, then on the team level and on the top executive level on organizational level. And here is how we would love to start with the feeling. So as Marie already said, access to our emotions, being aware of them is the first part, and gaining control, or at least the perceived control of them is critical here. We would like to speak about two techniques here, one of which is journaling. All of you might have heard about it. So journaling is really sitting there and listen to your thoughts. It's a bit like James Joyce's Ulysses, right? So it's a stream of consciousness that you write down. And here in these times of crisis, it's a good practice to use an office hour for your thoughts. So maybe you say, today at 8 p.m., I sit down with a pen and a piece of paper, maybe a cup of tea. And from 8 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., I'm going to listen to my thoughts and write them down, regardless. Whatever comes, I'm writing it down, everything, thoughts, emotions. But at 8:30 p.m., I'm closing shop. And if anxiety or sadness comes after that, I say, anxiety, sadness, you can come back tomorrow, not today. This way, you create the feeling of control about your emotions and they're not taking you hostage. And Marie, you have a fantastic example for senior executives in the UK company who does that. Very successful.
Yes, Katharina. So he doesn't close shop at the end of each day. The way he's found it most effective is at the end of the week on Friday, he sits down and organises his thoughts into a journal. But the way he organises it is to create 3 categories. So he writes about who he is and how he's behaved in relation to his team at work, and also family under another heading, and finally self. And he explained the way he's using it is as a way of making sense of his emotions and also the way he's been behaving that week. But he's got a longer term goal. He's talking about his hope by documenting at the end of each week his emotions and how he's been experiencing this crisis as a document or a way of, in the future, looking back on his leadership and making sense of it so that it can make him stronger and it can help him evolve. His hope, he says, is to look back at these days and be proud of the leader he is.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Marie.
Thank you, Katharina. So that's an example of an individual. Nina, I know you've got an example from a group that you're working with.
Yeah, thanks, Marie. Thanks for that lovely example. And the question is, how can we do this if we're a team leader in teams? It's not quite so easy to surface emotions in the normal corporate environment. And I saw the word opportunity on the Mentimeter there. I see this time as an opportunity to be bold, as Katharina said, and to try out new methods. One method that was proven very successfully in a company that I'm working with was something quite unconventional. The company, Inclusive Employees, a small but very influential company in the UK, have 2 weekly virtual check-ins. One for business and the other social and to provide emotional support. In the latter session, the check-in, the social check-in, one of the company directors asked me to lead a guided session for the whole team on metta meditation. Metta meditation is a form of meditation which really helps to access and manage emotions. This served to, they've never done it before, but it really served to as an emotional stabilizer for the team, because the emotions were accessed, they were discussed after the session, and especially at the time because one of the core team members was very poorly with COVID-19 at the time. So I would really recommend to try out new methods, allowing a safe space for the team to surface emotions in a positive and structured way. And that really works. So thank you.
Fantastic, Nina. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I see the chat is already brimming with ideas as well. We'll keep the chat on and we'll look at the chat. And I know you are monitoring the chat as well. So we look at the questions that are coming at the end when we went through the framework. Let's move ahead to the thinking dimension. And before we do that, full disclosure, my first foreign language was Latin. So I studied the classics quite a fair bit. And I found this wonderful quote by Seneca. And this is for me the ancient growth mindset. So no tree, and the original one is of course in Latin, but I spare you this. So no tree becomes rooted and sturdy unless many a wind assails it. For by its very tossing, it tightens its grip and plants its roots more securely. So how can we learn from this ancient wisdom of the growth mindset today? Obviously, it is always a good idea to ask yourself, what can I learn from it? How can I address my weaknesses in a more productive manner? How can I be Dante and make amends in the purgatory to arrive in paradise? Growing, looking at the weaknesses is obviously one. But there's also another strong technique. And then again, Nina, this is something where you work with a company on values and purposes in particular. What do they do? How do they do it?
Yeah, thank you, Katharina. I'm happy to share an example of one of the most inspiring CEOs I've ever had the pleasure to work with, Bob Chapman. He's the chairman of Barry Waymiller in St. Louis, US. And their company slogan, which is all over the walls when you actually visit the company, is "Success must be measured by the way we touch the lives of others." And this is a manufacturing company, you know, they make bottling products. I'll repeat the slogan: success must be measured by the way we touch the lives of others. And this isn't simply a slogan. This is something which is really put into practice within the organization with concrete actions, with communication sessions. Bob talks about the great privilege and social responsibility of leadership, especially at the moment, and how business needs to be a force for good. I spoke to him last week, and his main message at the moment, for all you executives out there, which is put into action at the moment in his organization, is the following: please give employees a grounded sense of hope for a better future. We need to find ways of giving employees a grounded sense of hope for a better future.
Thank you very much, Nina, for sharing this. And I know, Gabrielle, you also work with companies that use values and purpose as a means to organize themselves and get into the sense making. What do they do?
Yeah, it's very often that I see in my practice that connecting to purpose is a powerful way to find resilience. Maybe an example I have in mind is a family-owned business. They needed to evolve their governance, and they had been stuck for years because of many tensions within the family. What we chose to do was actually not to directly address governance, but to instead have a workshop to really find purpose and values of the holding. And the 30 members of the family attended that workshop. I must say that, well, it just really worked. It was very impressive and quite beautiful to see how the energy shifted. The energy shifted because by redefining the values and purpose, it gave direction and meaning beyond individual challenges, a kind of anchor for them all to align. Also because they could express their emotions, referring a little bit to what we just discussed. Thanks to that, they could align on objective, and they started working together again. So that's one example of the power of purpose to find resilience and start moving and growing again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gabrielle. Wonderful. Thank you. So these are examples for the thinking processes. So obviously, focusing around the values and the purpose is something that helps you not only as an individual. You can do that as a team, in your strategy meetings, you'll do that very likely anyways, but also for an organization. And we have examples where the individuals in large organizations feel very, very much protected the moment they realize that the courageous decisions they will have to take on execution level every single day in their markets are really aligned with the values that the organization holds dearly. So this alignment helps, and the conversation around it helps a lot to create this moment of sense making and helps to build more resilience in the entire organization. Moving on to the thinking, to the doing part, and what we learned in crisis it was really that the mind's eye of the leader needs to be focused on achieving things fast and making those transparent very, very fastly as well. So, Gabrielle, you also worked with a company who's using coaching, I believe, to arrive there, right?
Yeah. So right before the crisis, I was about to work with the team, and they had alarming business results and issues around team dynamics. So that we were going just to start, and then the lockdown happened. What is interesting in that story is how the leadership team decided to adapt. So within few days, we can look at two things. There is what they chose not to do, and there is what they chose to start doing. So in terms of not to do, they reprioritized efforts around stabilizing operations. So they refocused, which meant that they postponed the rest, including the team coaching. So not doing is also a choice, an important one in time of crisis. And in parallel, they decided to actually invest in leadership support and development, even more than what they had anticipated, around two axes. So one was to support the leader for crisis management so that it can be as smooth as possible. The other one is that this leader engaged proactively in working on himself, really, so that he works on longer term leadership effectiveness and style, which is one of the difficulties. So it's quite interesting that after a few weeks, we can already see really promising results of the joint impact of empowering people to act and improving leadership. This is ongoing, but quite yeah, really interesting to notice.
Fantastic, thank you. And also to summarize what we learned from other executives in crisis, that people don't like change. They don't like impose change where they lost control or the perceived control about their lives. And secondly, they don't like the uncertainty. So the advice that we learned from dealing with this crisis is, as a leader, establish a sense of safety, a sense of security for yourself and for your team as first step to do. So as we all learned when working from home, that a clear schedule helps us to get through the day and making mindful choices about what to do every single day. This also holds true for the teams that we lead. So the country director, for example, I interviewed at the very beginning of the crisis. She ran 2 countries, Singapore and Malaysia. What she did first was to establish a very clear communication routine, a very clear check-in routine with her teams, plural. And this really helped the team to feel safe and protected, they felt like being taken by the hand. And so her mind's eye on the achievement and making the progress very transparent for the entire team was a key success for her to manage her team through the crisis. And we see this pattern being repeated on a larger scale in the organizations where the progress that the organization makes in this crisis has been communicated clearly and transparently. This also helps the entire organization to find their feet much faster than if not. So now we have spoken about how we might manage our feelings, how we can arrive at a more rational and sense-making procedure, and what we can do mindfully around it. We would like now to learn from you. What has worked for you in the past weeks? What has really helped you to manage your teams, manage the situation? And here, please use the chat. And I and my colleagues and I, we will look at the chat function now, what you share and how you really shape this situation. We have close to 600 people in the call. So this might be something where we really, really learn from ourselves. Communicate with friends, direct team, digital people communication, regular connect and understanding. Yes, communication is absolutely important. Reframing your thoughts, regular, transparent communication. Focus on what can be influenced. This is a fantastic point. Yes, we know the circle of concern. Yes, COVID and the medication to be developed, they do concern us. Can we influence it? Not so very much. Focusing on what we can really influence within everything that concerns us is, I think, a very, very powerful tool to manage the emotions around it. Yes, very good. Stay connected, walk with friends. Yes, meditation. Talk about being transparent. Meditation comes up a couple of times. Yes, meditation is something where we also learn to control our thoughts, because we try to think nothing, which is incredibly difficult. So meditation is a very, very powerful tool, absolutely. Appreciating, yes, appreciating the good things we have, looking at the bright side, stay positive. Gratitude list. This is one thing that a dear friend of mine does as well. Every evening, she would write 10 positive things that happened to her. So she would kind of, work against the negativity of our brain. Our human brains are wired for negativity. We're really there to pick up threats in normal life, but even more so in crisis. Really, we pick them up really super fast now. And really working against this trend, this negativity trend of our brain with a very conscious positivity list is super powerful. Very good. Discipline. Yes, it's a strange word maybe, but yes, it helps. Stick to the schedule. Yes, and positivity. Wonderful.
Katharina, I see some suggestions about humour.
Yeah.
Finding laughter.
Yes.
Which, it changes our energy to laugh. And if we can do it with others, even better. And I see also a number of things regarding to physicality, sport, getting out into nature. Growing a garden there has just popped up, which is a wonderful one.
Yeah.
The way to do mindfulness. Mindfulness is really about connecting you to the present, connecting you to what is. So whether you do gardening, sports, meditation, find your way to connect to the present while still being grounded to the future.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And we really can't control what's going to happen. I think uncertainty was one of the largest words that came up in the Mentimeter. So we can't control the outside, but we can learn to manage the inside. And if we can manage our inside, we can influence those around us too. So I think that's usually important, to focus on what's going on inside and being aware of the emotions and managing them in a way that will help and inspire others.
Wonderful. And when we designed this session, well, we normally would have had exercises now, but when we designed the session, we said we wanted to come out really at this inspiring and this positive spark at the end. So while the chat is still going on what worked for you, let me formally end our arc of thoughts here with this wonderful picture from Sandro Botticelli about Beatrice and Dante being in the 10th sphere of heaven. This is Imperium. This is where order and certainty are reestablished and where they're allowed to live. And so this in mind, thinking what could be the one thing that you can take out of this crisis experience, the one thing where you will be stronger, the one thing where you also might inspire others to become stronger, to come out on the other side stronger, bolder, brighter, better. Can you share that with us, please? This would be the final question we would have, and then we look at the questions that you have for us. How will you be stronger after the crisis? Sense of belonging in community, yes. Isn't that? I mean, if we look at values, I thought that the value of solidarity, community, compassion is really something that has been brought to the fore. And we saw a lot of wonderful examples, absolutely. Priorities in life, being clear what you really want. What is your purpose? What is your Beatrice? Why are you doing it? Yes. Being grateful, being more grateful. Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting that often in organization, we think that when there is a crisis, we need to add control. And what I see here is actually more flexibility, positivity, mindset. I learned once that when we can't control anymore, the next best thing after control is flexibility.
Yes, very good. Be more courageous. Yes. Be more. I think this is the first thing we learn in the Divine Comedy. All cowardice must die. Yes, be more courageous, be bold. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to go through hell. But if they hadn't, they wouldn't arrive at paradise. So absolutely wonderful.
And resilience is a muscle. Like this can be trained. That's also what we can see here.
Yeah, it can be trained, and we all can come out of this stronger. Being self-contained, stay connected, see things from different perspectives. Yes, empathy, looking at how people around us experience this crisis and be compassionate with them, give voice, be more pragmatic. Wonderful. Empathy, be a bit more humble. Yes, I think this was a lesson that Earth told us about humbleness and humility.
There's a part here, Katharina, about being outside of ourselves. Mm-hmm. So how we connect, how we take ourselves out of ourselves and make meaning through connection. Mm-hmm. You know, whether that be the earth, whether it be with others.
Yeah. So this meaning of you are not alone, meaning looking at how people around you are doing it, feeling that we're not alone in this, taking responsibility and being solidaric and compassionate with people around us. Yes, absolutely. Knowing the limitations and boundaries of our circle of influence, a very powerful insight. Yes. Focused on choices. Disinfectant. I hope this will
like that
at some point in time.
Okay. One thing that's coming through for me, reading everything that's everyone's putting in, and thank you for that. It's we're coming somehow. There's an opportunity to come closer to the connection with our hearts and not only with our heads. And I think a lot of maybe in the corporate world, we've been walking heads, but I'm feeling people are in more contact with their hearts and what's most important to them.
And this is the integrity that we spoke about, right? So the integrity of head and heart, being aware of the emotions, being able to connect authentically, and then also making sense of it in a way that it makes sense according to the purpose of the organization, according to the purpose of the people themselves. Wonderful. Underground, yes. So there's still a lot of fantastic comments coming through. And I'm really, really glad and very, very thankful for those comments, because it feels like we're already getting positive momentum here. We're getting somewhere where we can inspire people with the good thoughts that we have and with the wonderful ideas that you have and share with us. We are looking now forward to your questions that you have. And my dear colleagues and I will look at the chat. If there are questions we can answer right away. And for example, how about your suggestions about how to maintain this momentum? Well, this is a fantastic question. How can we not forget, right, what we have just learned? Can you share maybe experiences, Nina, Marie, or Gabrielle, experiences how your coachees have maintained the learning momentum that came out of a coaching experience maybe, or how they contained or sustained this learning experience for themselves?
Yeah, I can share with a company I'm working with in the Netherlands, and they have a voluntary check-in at the end of every virtual day. And it's a kind of ritual they have. It's always at 5 o'clock, and it's called a mindfulness quarter. So it's really just 15 minutes, and no one has to go. A lot of people turn up every day, and they do something which does them good. It may be a movement, it may be a meditation, it may be reading a poem. I've only been to a couple of the sessions, but this is something that's been going on for 6 weeks now, and it's really supporting this feeling of we're in this together, and we're finding ways to boost our strength and resilience, basically. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it doesn't have to be a long session. It could be 5 minutes. But creating rituals in your team has worked particularly well for that organization.
Yeah.
One thing that I can maybe add at the individual level is that what you are doing is already helping, because change starts with awareness and by acknowledging what's happening, by paying attention to the change. So in coaching, we call that anchoring. So the more you become aware of what you want to keep, the more you try to anchor it in your body, in a post-it on your computer, in whatever you want, in the journaling, the more you're building that synapses in your brain that will help you keep that. So keep practicing, keep that as much as possible, and bring it to your attention until it becomes natural. As simple as that. Not that simple, but simple as that.
And Gabrielle, just even to build one step further on that, also that who's going to be your accountability buddy? Who are you going to share this commitment with? Who are you going to work with who's going to help you? That sense of a secure base, that sense of a coach, that sense of somebody with whom you can buddy, who is going to be the person who's going to help you stretch in your commitment to make this change longer lasting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think one of the things we discussed about was to build security for yourselves. So building a ritual for yourselves, like really starting with a meditation every morning, or starting with 10 minutes of yoga, or whatever it is that helps you to structure your day in the moment. What holds you back from doing it when you're going to, you know, maybe a normal or more office-based schedule? It's simply yourself, right? So this is, maybe you can make that commitment to yourselves to really keep on these rituals that you have established now over this time. And habit really comes with doing it often and again and again.
I know that in a lot of people are talking about this 2020 vision. We're all going to come out of this with 2020 vision. And it's, you know, how we connect with people and the experience is partly about keeping talking about it. It's a reference point. It can be a powerful reference for us to connect with people, but also dare them. Mm-hmm. What's the dare that you're going to give yourself in 2020?
Thank you. Yeah. I see a couple of questions around business questions, like how does capitalism develop? How do you plan for resilience in supply chains and business models? That by itself is its own webinar. It's its own webinar. So we have other webinars at IND here on resilience of business models. We had an excellent webinar by my colleague Frédéric Dalsas on sustainability and how it might evolve after the crisis. It's recorded. It's there on our webpage. So you're more than welcome to look at it, and also maybe to tune in on some of the webinar and all of the webinars, if you like, of my colleagues that are coming or that had been. And I'm looking at, we're coming to a close of the session. I'm closing with a final slide, which gives you our email addresses and how we can be reached after our session here. I know that, Zoom webinars have to be really on time because you schedule your time around it, and it's exhausting listening to too many of those. I hope you found this session helpful. We're very, very, very happy about your contributions and your wonderful, wonderful ideas here. We'll keep the chat open for 5 or 6 more minutes. But now we'd like to formally say goodbye and thank you very much. Maybe Nina, Mary, Gabrielle, you also say goodbye.
Absolutely.
Goodbye. May you and all your families stay safe and happy and well.
And what we see, what we read is a gift to us as well. Like I can feel the energy in myself. So thank you for sharing and you showing that it goes in the right directions. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add to that, isn't it wonderful? The sense of the world has joined us this morning with all of you coming from so many countries and cultures. So thank you. We've got great gratitude for that.
Yes.
Big virtual hug.
Thank you. Great virtual hug. Thank you so very much. We hope to see you soon here at IMD on our campus or virtually in our next webinars. And take care and stay safe and stay healthy. All the very best. Thank you very much.